Everybody, please join me to welcome Prosper Otemuyiwa.
Hi, everybody. How you guys feeling? Are you excited? Yeah, so I had a different plan when I came here, right? When I spoke in 2020, which is already 2 years ago, I can't believe it's 2 years ago, I wore an agbada, all right? And that was because the AC here was nice, everywhere was chilled. But right now, everywhere is hot. So I'm just going to dress like this. I hope that's fine. If that's not okay, I can change into like short knicker. Is that acceptable? All right. Okay, so technical problems in a technical talk. What's happening? All right. Okay, so my name is Prosper Otemuyiwa. Some of you know me as Prosper. Some of you know me as Unico developer. Some of you know me as Fire, whatever. I'm also a developer. I'm a developer advocate at SourceGraph. And I want to brag a little, okay? So these are other sides of me. I'm an open source contributor. I co-founded 4Loop Africa. How many people know 4Loop here? Everybody, okay, nice. I also co-founded Eden Life. Who is a customer of Eden Life here? Jesus Christ. Wait. If you're a subscriber of Eden Life here, let me see your hands up. If your company uses Eden, let me see. Wow. We have work to do. All right, I'm also an angel investor in more than 20 companies so far. All right. So, last year I talked about, 2 years ago, my topic was tiny changes. How many people remember? Remarkable results. And I had feedback that it was really good. So now we are taking it to the next level. All right? Today I'm talking about the golden ticket. What's the golden ticket? Becoming a superstar and impactful open source contributor. So we've had so many talks today talk about like how to contribute to open source, the different things you need to do, how it helps you. Here you're going to learn how to become a superstar. Now there are different reasons people contribute to open source, right? One, they really just want to learn. They really want to learn. They want to really up their game in their knowledge of programming, design, right? Some people contribute to open source because they want to make money, which is debatable, right? Because if you want to make money, you should go and work for companies, right? You should be paid to write code. Don't become an open source contributor. But we'll talk about how you can make money later, right? Or some people decide to contribute to open source because they want to be popular. And that's not bad, that's okay. Don't let anybody deceive you, right? Some of the things they tell us, at least several years ago, is that if you want to become a developer or you want to work in the tech space, you need to be passionate about solving problems. That's a lie. You don't have to be passionate about anything. Yeah. You can decide to come for the money and stay for the money. That's fine. Yeah. You can decide to come for the passion and stay for the passion. That's okay too. Right? And you can decide to build software for free. That's fine. All of us work together to still become a community. Is that right? Cool. So let's go on. Right? So building, shipping, and scaling great software is hard. However, building great and impactful software in the public and for free is incredibly harder. And we'll explain in a very, very soon. Right now, we need more impactful open source contributors today. Why? Right? We are currently at a breaking point where the sustainability of open source is at stake, right? Right now, we have so many companies, like all the companies that you can think of, like Netlify, Netflix, all of these companies are heavily dependent on open source package, right? And when you look at the last 2 years, right now, even in the world, it has been crazy, am I right? The pandemic started when? In 2020, right? After that, what happened? We started having like series of problems. Now we have almost a world war looming somewhere in a part of the world, right? So it has not been easy for everybody. Even when you look at your co-workers at work, people are just tired by default. When you wake up and it's time for stand-up, before stand-up by 9 a.m., you're already tired. Sometimes the only thing that gives you joy is your food from Eden Life, when they tell you it has arrived. So a lot of people are really going through it, right? So right now, we are at that point, that breaking point, where we need all of you in this room and outside of this room to contribute to the existing software that has been developed, right? Because right now, open source maintainers are burned out. Many of them need help. And what you see these days, I mean, not just these days, this has been happening from like time past. Somebody is using an open source project. You are building a software for profit, right? Maybe you're building a startup. Maybe you're building Brass. Maybe you're building Eden. And I'm sure it's dependent on open source packages, right? And you need something fixed. There is a bug. Or there is something you really need to be in a particular version of the software. And then you complain, you raise an issue, right? Hi, guys, blah, 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 blah. You put it there, you put a documentary, boom, paste it. And then you're waiting for the maintainer to solve it. And the maintainer is like dealing with real-life problems, right? The maintainer is probably not here. The maintainer is probably in Ukraine or something. And you just don't want to know. You just really want, like, your problem solved. And we have a lot of people like that. If you have ever maintained an open source project before, I do, and I get all sorts of funny messages. I get emails, right? Some people see my name in the package, Unicode developer, and then go and Google me, and then see my handle, and tweet at me, hi, I raised an issue. And I'm just like, how? From GitHub to Twitter. And then I get emails too, like, you know, some people email me in the night. Like, I've had emails from even people that are not like developers. You know how business people like delve into development a bit. They have an idea, right? Maybe they've gone to hire a developer, they cannot pay well. The developer has just messed them up a bit, like I'll show you. And just do half work, right? And then they're trying to figure out, it's PHP, I've done PHP before, I can find my way around, or JavaScript. And then they see the name, Unicode developer. They go and search. They see a name, Prosper Otemuyiwa. They now see my email. They now go ahead and email me, hi, we were working on a project. And then we use this particular package, and all of a sudden it's not working. Please, can we get a call so that we can fix it? On your own time. I get that a lot. So people are burned out. I'm burned out. A lot of people are burned out. How can we help? So this is a question. Feel free to tweet about it if you want to. What if you were handed a golden ticket that could magically start your tech life afresh? I mean, these days we have tech bros, we have taxis. I came in here and I was seeing the quality of cars outside, and I was happy. 4 years ago, it was not like that, right? We were just walking here. We didn't have this, right? And when I look at like people that have been in the tech world for a while, say 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, I ask them the same question, like, what would you do differently if you were to start your tech life? Like, knowing what you know now, knowing what is available, knowing the tools that are available, and the kind of things that you can do to make money or to make impact, what would you do if you were to restart your tech life right now? I think you can ask yourself that question for the next like 5 seconds. Knowing what you know about open source now, knowing what you know about Web3, knowing what you know about Bitcoin. If you were to restart your life as a developer, as a programmer, what are you going to do differently? I'm sure you're thinking about a lot right now. This is what I will do. And I'll show you how. So there are 4 ways or 4 techniques that you can leverage in becoming a superstar and impactful open source contributor. And we're going to talk about it right now. Number 1, finding and fixing security vulnerabilities, boosting code health, be faster at code onboarding, and code reuse. And we're going to talk about everything in essence. So for many people that want to make impact, right, some people maybe see people in the community that they look up to. Maybe they see how popular they've become, or they see how like valuable they are. Like, you know, you want to be like them, which is great, right? But many of those people did not just become popular, like, you know, out of the box, right? Many of them were doing the work over time, right? And then after some time, they've had so many things they've done that people can point to, people can look at, and then, you know, people look up to them, right? And then they become superstars, right? So what I like to tell people is start with trying to make an impact somewhere, right? And then, of course, being a superstar will automatically follow. Because one of the things that you learn in life is that when you are valuable, right, people will look for you. right? And here we have so many people here that work remotely already. You know, you're here, you're probably working remotely for a company somewhere in Asia or like in the US, right? And that's because you're good. Like you know what you can deliver. So people will seek you out. And in the past 2 years, because of the pandemic and because like things have just changed, a lot of developers, a lot of companies are seeking out developers from all angles. They don't care wherever you are. If you're in Lagos, you are based in Ekpe, I don't care. Do you have a laptop? Do you have stable internet? I think you can join the team. Are you good? Let's go. So let's start with code reuse. Number 1, contribute to libraries, contribute to SDKs, and contribute to components. So these are 3 different things, right? If you're very active, like you use Node.js, you know, or you work very actively on the back end, many a times you're always installing libraries, right? To do many of the things that you want to do. You just pull in one library. You pull in an auth library. You pull in, library that connects to an API, right? And then you have SDKs that you consume just to do whatever you want to do. Or if you're building like React, you're working on the front end, React, Vue.js, there's so many components that ready-made components, right, that you can use. Say you wanted to build something like Slack. You already have like ready-made widgets. You already had ready-made, Slack components that you can pull into your code and just use instead of building from scratch, right? So one of the ways you can make impact is when you're working, when you're doing your work, right? There's so many things that are available currently, and there's still so many things that are not available. And I'll tell you some of those things, right? I built the Laravel Cloudinary SDK, and before I built the Laravel Cloudinary SDK, for some of you that use PHP and Laravel here, which is like what I deal with primarily, there was a package called Clouder. So I don't know if anybody can remember Clouder, right? For if you use PHP or Laravel, Clouder used to be the, exactly, right? That used to be the popular package that people use, right? I used to use that package. And then all of a sudden, for a very long time, that package never got updated, right? And I had the opportunity to work with the Cloudinary team. I was writing articles for them, teaching people how to use Cloudinary, answering people on Twitter, answering people on Stack Overflow, answering people on Quora. My contract with them was just to help people understand Cloudinary better, right? And that was my contract with them. I did not need to do any other thing. So I looked at that package. I saw that a lot of people were complaining in the issues, right? And I discovered that the maintainer was not really active. So even when people tried to support, they were not getting help. It was taking a lot of time. I wanted to contribute, but I just couldn't because we had a lot of pending issues. So what I did was, I think it stopped at Laravel 5 or something, I can't remember. And then now we have Laravel 9, right? That's a lot of gap. So what I did was I just created a new package. I talked to the Cloudinary team, I'm like, hey, this is what's happening with your package, and a lot of people are looking for ways to store files and manipulate files. I'm like, I want to go ahead and build a Laravel library. I don't know if people will use it, but I'm just going to try. And I did that. I built a package, a Laravel Cloudinary package. And of course, whenever I build, what I do is I write about it. So I put it on Twitter, I wrote about it. And then, of course, the next best thing, people started using it, right? So people started switching from the Clouder package to the Laravel Cloudinary SDK that I built. And then people just kept on using it, right? And this okay, you guys can't see it, so sorry about this, right? But if you check the package, just Google Cloudinary Laravel, you see it has a lot of stars, a lot of people have forked the repo, you can see the number of people that are even already using it somewhere, you can see the total number of downloads, over 100K. People started taking the library very seriously. And for me, it just opened up more opportunities, right? I was like, Cloudinary is an API that people can, you can write modules for it in your code, right? But as a developer that is rushing, or you have a product manager on your neck, do you want to spend time writing modules, or do you want to just pull in a module or a package that you can readily use and just move on to the next task on Jira? You want to just pull in a library, right? Or pull in an SDK that is just really, really efficient. So I started looking around, right? One of the things we are blessed with these days is that we have so many startups that are coming up, so many infrastructure startups, right? You have CredPal, you have Sudo Africa, you have Brass. I don't know when Brass is trying to release their own API, right? So I can imagine if Brass Banking, for example, or Kuda is trying to release an API very soon. I don't know if they've released it yet. They come up with an API, right? Oh, we've released a developer API for people to use. By default, many of those platforms do not have libraries or SDKs at all. It's just APIs where any developer that wants to use them have to integrate them manually, right? One of the things that you can do is just to go ahead and create a library or an SDK for that project. That's a simple hack. So right here, right now, bring out your phone and start looking for startups or companies that have APIs that do not have libraries in the language that you use. If it's PHP or Python or Ruby or any of the languages you use, if they don't have a library for it or they don't have a library for the, whether you use Rails or Laravel, go ahead and create one, right? Because I promise you, when you go ahead and create one, there are some people that are just waiting not to write that code themselves, right? Because one thing about code is that the more you write, the more you suffer. Because as you write new code, you introduce new bugs. Am I lying? Very correct, right? So would you rather defer that to somebody else to deal with and just like import it than you manage it yourself, right? So one of the ways that you can make impact easily is as simple as that. You don't even have to overthink it. You don't have to think, oh, what open source project am I going to create? Look for companies or products that have APIs that developers can use and just create SDKs for them. There are so many now, right? I was looking at, 55 documentation the other day. Like, 55 is one of the startups that raised money recently from Zambia. I think Zambia or Zimbabwe. And many of the startups we have in Lagos use them for their card issuing APIs. So if you have any startup that has given you the ability to create virtual cards, there is a high probability that they're using Union 54 behind the scene. So if you go and check the Union 54 API, like they just have this raw API there, right? They don't even have libraries or community packages. That's your opportunity to shine, right? They don't have it yet. So you can go ahead and create it. And when you create it, you can decide to submit it to them or just like tweet about it. If people find it useful, people will start using it, right? And this is the one I've talked about so much, right? I talked about it in my last talk, and I will never stop talking about it because right now it's still funny to me that the package I created in 2016, Laravel Paystack, I have not updated it in a long time. I've not touched the code in a long time. People are still using it. I don't even know how useful this thing is. It's been 6 years now, right? Backstory for some of you that don't know, in 2016 when Paystack started, Paystack had this amazing API. All of us know Paystack here, right? And that was when I started contributing to open source as well, in 2015. And what I did was, I discovered that, oh, this Paystack API is really nice. I was doing something with Paystack, and there was no library. They didn't even have a PHP library at the time, right, before they wrote theirs. There was no PHP library, there was no Laravel library. So what I went ahead to create a library for Paystack called Laravel Paystack. And I wrote about it and I just put it out there, right? And as God will have it, a lot of people started using it, right? A lot of people started using it. I had to start like updating. I got like amazing PRs from people. And then this package, it's been 6 years. Again, if you look at, okay, you guys can see it, but maybe you can check it out on your own time. I've not updated this package in a long time, but this package is still so useful. In fact, all of the emails, most of the emails I've gotten from people just asking for help in open source was because they encountered this package, even people that are not developers, right? So people just get a project, slap this package on top of it, and boom, users are ready to pay. They don't have to integrate the API. So that alone has helped them not to try to integrate it themselves. This package just does the job. And then, because of this, when I'm talking about all the open source works I've done or submitting, I just add this package as part of it because a lot of people currently use it. So that's one of the things you could do, right? So number 2, finding and fixing security vulnerabilities. That's one part of tech or one part of programming that is often overlooked, right? People always talk about building. Nobody talks about testing. Nobody talks about pen testing or scanning for vulnerabilities. And I don't know how many security people we have in the house. One of the things I've also noticed around here is we rarely have security developers. There's a probability that if I talk to one random person here, the person is a front-end developer. There's a probability. Am I lying? I'm sure Eddie Dion was asking questions now, and people are like, oh, how many people have you met? 5 front-end developer. Why? Where are the back-end developers? Are they in the house? You can even count them. I don't want to start any debate about front-end and back-end because we know where the infrastructure is. But let's move on. So for finding and fixing security vulnerabilities, that's one of the ways you could approach it for impact, right? One of the things you could do, there are available tools on the internet that you can just search for, right? What those tools do is basically just scan code. You can scan a back-end API. You can scan an entire code. You can scan for a lot of things. And these are some of the things you can take note, like how are they consuming images here? Like how are they consuming the API from the front end? Like is there any cost, or middle-man attack? Some of these tools are available. You can actually just get those tools and start scanning available projects to see if you have any security vulnerabilities. right? In fact, many of the popular open source projects, Laravel, Python, Rails, they will tell you that if you find any security vulnerability, please email us with the report, right? So that's one of the places you can easily make an impact without even touching code. Find a way to be able to scan many of the open source projects people use or the products people use to see if there are any security vulnerabilities and fix it. And I'll give you examples, right? The ones that are very popular. The most recent one that we all heard of was Log4j. How many heard of the Log4j issue? Exactly, right? There was a compromised version of the Log4j, and it was somebody that found it out. Somebody found it out, right? And it was affecting a lot of servers. Because this is an Apache Log4j, that's always like on the servers and on the backend, right? And they proposed a fix for it. So they had to bump the version to a newer version. In fact, when they bumped it to a newer version, there was another security vulnerability in the newer version. So everybody, like when they wrote about it, people updated their servers and stuff. And then the next day, somebody said, Omo, we have not gone anywhere. What you just created is a bug for the bug. So we need to update it and bump it up to a new version. And they did that. I think they did that like twice before they had a version that was really good, right? Now, you have created a fix. Now, how do you replace this fix in every place that uses Apache Log4j? That's another trouble. Because you now had like servers that were using like old versions. So you needed to find a way to be able to scan, like what's the fastest way to be able to replace this thing? So for people that could write scripts to replace them, many people came up with like different scripts. Like even at SourceGraph came up with his own script and like his own way of using Cynic, a security company, came up with their own, right? So one of the ways you could contribute as somebody that is trying to make an impact is when you get hold of vulnerability like this, it's easier for you to write a script or come up with a recommended way of like doing it across projects. Because when you do that and write about it, people will know. People will actually follow your blog or your article because this is the documented way of fixing this, right? And then once people start to do that, people start to look at you as some level of expert. Even though you're not an expert yet, you've just helped, right? People start to look at you as an expert somehow. Like, this guy helped me fix this. So maybe there's something else that this person knows. People start looking at you and asking for help. And then that's how you start to make impact continuously, right? So this is one of the ways. We have so many others. WordPress Heartbleed. I don't know. WordPress Heartbleed is a long time bug. I just put that as an example. All right. So another way you can do is to boost code health. When we talk about code health, what are we talking about? This is one of the things a lot of people don't talk about. So in summary, when you talk about the health of a code base, it's simple, right? It simply means how long can we sustain this project in a way that the tech debt will not be high. We know about tech debt, right? So as you continue to build projects, open source, even just within your company, at some point you get to a level of a high tech debt. And that's why different companies, even Google, like people rewrite their code almost like every 2 years, every 3 years, they rewrite the entire infrastructure because you are getting to a point where your debt level is like very high, right? So one of the ways you can make impact is you can look for existing open source projects, right? And say, okay, what can I contribute to this project that will increase the health of this code base, right? So these are some of the examples of what you can do. There's a package I love so much in the JavaScript ecosystem. It's called bundle size. How many of you use it? It's called bundle size. People use it even on the back end and on the front end. With bundle size, you can specify a particular like size. Like, oh, I don't want, when we bundle this project into a minified file, I don't want it to be more than like 2 MB. Or I don't want it to be more than 1.5 MB, right? So as you keep developing, it runs every time you run your project and gives you the size. Like, oh, this is the existing size of the project, right? So you can easily know, like, okay, this is inching towards 2 MB, this is far away from 2 MB, right? So these are some of the examples you can do. You can set up this for an open source project, right? You can set up linters. You can set up tools that like facilitate great code standards. There are so many types of linters. There are prettier packages, and there are so many open source tools that are just looking for something like this. Like, we're just contributing to this project. There are so many things. People are like focused on the code. So you can come in and focus on the structure of the code, right? Oh, okay, for us to be able to like continue maintaining this project for the longest time, we need it to follow this standard, we need it to follow this standard, we need it to follow this standard. And then that's where you can come in. You can set up all these linters, you can set up all of these things. And this allows the health of the project to like what? Increase, right? And then you can reduce the tech debt. Even if that is what you do, that's the only thing that you do on the team, you have created an impact, right? Because people now know you as the go-to guy for maintaining what? The health of that project. Okay. All right, so I'm rounding up now, just like 2 more. Faster developer onboarding. What do I mean by this? So for faster developer onboarding, most times when you get onboarded on like very big open source projects, sometimes you don't know where to start from. In fact, a lot of the times you don't know where to start from. It's so complex. It's so big. There are so many issues. There are so many existing pull requests. And you're like, where do I start from? Right? It's like, this is not for me. Let me just focus on the job that they pay me to do. But you don't have to think that way, right? Because where you can start from the README, you can start from the documentation. One of the things I like about React, right, is that React, they keep reinventing their documentation all the time, right? It's simpler, it's more, it's simpler, it's well expanded with so many examples. And they do this every single time. They're always really working on documentation. Same thing too with Vue.js, right? So you can look for an existing open source project that you use, or one that is popular, look at the documentation and tell yourself, how do I make this documentation better for people like me, right? So you're coming in as a first-time contributor. You know the challenges that you faced when you plan to, when you clone the project. So what you are telling yourself basically is, if I clone this project and I see that it is this difficult to actually start contributing, then you can write down some points and say, okay, this is where I started from. This is how I got it. This is the way I went about it. And then you talk with an existing maintenance of the project and like, okay, what's a better way to start from? Some people are just looking for an entry point. So if you can get that entry point, you can document it, you have contributed, you have made a very big impact. And then for every single time a new maintainer is added to the project or people want to contribute to the project, they have very nice entry points, right? At SourceGraph, there's a tool called Notebook that we use internally and some customers, right? With Notebook, you can just put in code examples inside, you can put in code examples inside like a book, right? And when it's time for somebody to get onboarded for the project, the person will just start from that entry point and just keep going. So there's runnable code inside, there's documentation, there's code structure, all of those things are available so that somebody can understand how to contribute to the project easily. So you can easily do that. So we've talked about 4 ways to leverage, right? And when you start making an impact, there are so many mind-blowing opportunities that you can have just because you are contributing to open source, right? And I'll just mention a few. So when you start contributing heavily and you start making impacts, of course, like I said initially, when you start making impacts, people want to know who you are, people want to invite you to speak at conferences, people want to actually give you paid contracts, right? There are open source projects that they pay them just to focus on it. For Laravel, for example, you have at least 5 developers that work on Laravel full-time, where the founders actually pay them salaries to work on Laravel. And there's so many other open source projects like that. There are open source projects that get grants and funding, right? So when somebody sees your impact in a project or in a group of projects, the next good thing is to reach out to you. Like, hey, we need help on this project. Would you be chanced or would you be free, to be able to help us do this thing, right? Or you can get emails, right, to just come for conferences, right? So if you're somebody that admire or want to start traveling for conferences, I'm sure Nada can talk more about that. He has been on the road for, after here, you're going to Dubai, right? I wish I was following you. Right? I wish So, these are just some of the opportunities. You get a lot of speaking engagements, and next thing, for someone like you that you're just here, not traveling, next thing you're traveling to speak at different events, and that opens up your eye to different opportunities. Then apart from that too, right, there was something I did recently. I was applying for something. They called it the UK Global Talent. And one of the things I did was to list my open source contributions. That was what I did. I just took a PDF. I listed everywhere I've spoken at before. I listed all the open source projects I've contributed to. I listed all the open source projects that I have created. And I kid you not, in less than 1 week, they gave me a recommendation. And that was it. I didn't have to do much, right? And that's because I have work that I can show, that people can Google and see and say, okay, this guy's name is all over all these projects. This guy must have been doing something right? I mean, it's good to do impactful work within your company. That's great. But you and the people that work together are the ones that see that. But for open source, everybody sees that. People that don't know you from Jack, they can see what you are doing. They can see your name. They can see what you write about. They can see what you contribute to, right? And that can lead to endless opportunities. There are so many opportunities I can talk about here, but I don't have time. I think my time is almost up. I think I have, 30 seconds left. Yeah, so if you want to know more about it, you can reach out to me, and I'll tell you, right? There are so many opportunities. So many. I became a GitHub star because of this, right? I was the first GitHub star in Africa. In fact, when we were starting the GitHub star program, we were 3 people that they contacted globally to start the program. Guess who was one of them? Me, right? Because of my open source contributions. So there are just so many that you can talk about, right? But again, after this program, feel free feel free to bombard me and ask questions, right? And I'll tell you more about all of these things. So if you are very interested in open source contributions and want to learn more, there's a Slack community that you can join. This is the Slack community. You can check out this link, copy it, or you can just scan this QR code. In fact, this QR code was for this reason, because I know some of you will not be able to see that, right? So you can scan this QR code, take a picture, scan it, and feel free to join this community. When you join this community, you have a lot of people like you and also people that have been contributing to open source for a long time that can guide you on how to make very impactful contributions. Have you taken it? Okay. Please take a picture. Feel free to join, because the idea is for you to become like an impactful open source contributor. Yeah, so it's a QR code. So once you can always join the community, or you can just copy this link and join from there. Okay. So acknowledgement. I want to shout out to Vanessa Ortiz. She works at SourceGraph, where she helped me with ideas for this talk and also helped me proofread it. If you're watching on the live stream, Vanessa, thank you for helping me, because we were on a call last night and just going back and forth because I had so many things written down and I didn't want to waste you guys' time because my time is limited. So she helped me with proofreading and helping me with ideas for this talk. So thank you very much, guys. If you want to become an impactful contributor, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Unicode, GitHub, Unicode, send me an email, and let's talk more about how to make impact. Thank you, guys.